Hey guys, it's Morgan. Welcome back to another weekly Shlog here at Highland Cycles in Montrose, Colorado, where we show you all kinds of cool dirt bike stuff. We work on everything dirt related. So we got YZs, we got KTMs, we got Husqvarnas, we got even Husabergs. That's for you, Chris Nelson. And Hondas, whatever, anything. If it has two wheels that goes in the dirt, we work on it. And yeah, this is our little shop vlog, and we do all kinds of cool stuff. So if that sounds awesome, join us. Here we go. All right, guys, so first on the lift is this YZ250X. This is actually not the one from last Shlog. That one I went ahead and finished up. But if you joined us last Shlog, you saw me struggle to install the wrong-sized lowering thing for the shock. So that was a mistake. Anyway, I ordered the wrong ones. My fault. I take full responsibility. But we have the right ones now, so I'm going to show you how that works. I also had one of you guys ask if I could describe kind of different ways of lowering and all what it does and the benefits and things like that. So let's start with what we're doing here. Hang on. Let's start with what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're taking this shock and we're going to limit how far out the shock shaft can come. Let me pull the shock off and I'll just show you real fast. All right, so in this version, what we're going to do is we're going to put a spacer into the shock body that pushes the whole seal head and everything up, and it's going to push this shaft up, and it's going to limit how far out it can come, effectively lowering the shock. It's going to shorten the travel. That is one way. Another way, you can go inside and add a spacer on the actual shock shaft that comes in from the back side of the seal. So here's the seal head shaft, open world over here. Inside here is all the magic where the piston and everything happens. You can put a spacer there so it stops the piston from going up against the shock or the seal head and stops it that way. So that's another option for lowering it internally like that. And both of those work. Both are relatively simple. The kind that we are doing here using this Zeta thing is really, really inexpensive and really easy. Just about anybody could do it. You don't have to bleed the shock or anything like that afterwards. You just have to add nitrogen back in. So that's one way. And what that does is by taking this, all right, so this guy is about 10.5 millimeters. It lowers the bike about 30 millimeters. It's because of geometry. If you failed that class in high school, go back and take it. But it has to do with the linkage and the geometry of the bike and the way it sits. So that's about a 30 millimeter lowering. Now, there's other ways to do that. Let me show you. With a linkage bike, at least. As you can see right up in here, this, we call this the dog bone of the linkage. You can lengthen that, which also will drop the back end of the bike. Let's see. That is an effective way. It's even easier than doing this because you don't even have to take anything apart except for that bolt. It's 2 bolts that comes out. It's super non-invasive. The problem with that, so one of the things I don't like about doing, and I will do anything, whatever I have to do to make a bike so someone can ride it, that's what I'm all about. I just want people to get out and ride. So start with that statement. But when you lower a bike, if you do it with the linkage or anything like that, you start to change that geometry down there. And when you change that, you really change the way the back end of the bike works. Because this linkage, the reason that's there is to help make this a more progressive suspension. So as it goes up, as the swing arm goes up and the wheel's moving, it gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer. And part of that is because of this linkage. It changes the angle that it's pushing on the shock and all that stuff. It's complicated, but when you mess with those dimensions, you change the way it works. And not always bad, right? So a lot of race guys have different linkages for different kinds of tracks, whether it be hard pack or loose or whatever. Get better traction, put more weight on the rear wheel. There's lots of things that goes on with the linkage, and you can change that. And like I said, pros have their own machine shop to change those things and test things out. So it's not always a bad thing to change that geometry, but it's also not always a good thing. So I like to avoid that if possible. Now, by lowering the shock, like we're getting ready to do, it also changes that a little bit. It also loses a little bit of travel. That's not always awesome, but if you're a short person wanting to get your feet on the ground, there's not a lot you can do, right? you gotta sacrifice something. So you can do that. Those are really the only ways I know of to actually lower the back end of a bike through the shock. Is either go inside the shock, like way inside, put a spacer, do the spacer like we're doing, kind of on the outside, or we change the dog bone. You can actually, some companies actually build a different tri-link, that bottom piece that actually hooks to the shock, to build a different geometry there, but it does basically the same thing as the dog bone. It changes that and lowers the bike in the back end. Now, one thing when you're lowering a bike, you really want to try to balance it, because when we're going to drop this bike, we're going to go like this, right? So that's an exaggeration, but we're going to go boop and bring the seat down this way. Now, if all you're going to do is putt around and not go fast, that's fine. But if you want to ride aggressively and have the bike work right, a bike that's raked out like this doesn't turn very well. It actually might be really good at going fast in a straight line, but it doesn't turn that well. It's too choppered out. So what we need to do is bring the front end down. Now, there's lots of ways to do that. What we are going to do, since we're only doing 30 millimeters on the shock, we're just going to raise the forks up. And let me show you. I actually did it on this one already. You can see we raised the forks up about as far as I could. We might be able to get a little bit more out of that. Not really. We're almost up against the bars. So that's about as far as I can. That's not quite 30 millimeters, but it's pretty good. It's going to keep this bike relatively balanced. I mean, if we look at it here, it's pretty balanced. It doesn't look like it's raked out. And that's what we're going for. We're not dealing with pro riders that are trying to qualify for 6 days, so we don't want to make it handle poorly, but we also can sacrifice a little bit to get it so that they're comfortable and have more confidence on the bike. So that is the cheapest way to do it, is put the little spacer in the shock, drop, raise the forks up, aka drop the triple clamps down, and there you go. But you only get, like I said, 30 millimeters. That's not a ton. Now, if you want to go further, you have to get kind of crazy. You got to go inside. You can build a really big spacer for the shock and drop it down. But the problem when you do that is you start to run into needing a different spring. So if we look here, fortunately, this has lots of threads here, so that when we shrink this shaft down, that 10 millimeters, this can just go up and we can keep the same preload on the shock. Over here, we're going to be doing the same thing to this shock, but you see we are out of threads here. So when we shorten this shaft, now it's going to put a whole bunch of preload on the spring, and that's not going to be good. So we're probably going to have to get a custom spring cut for that shock. You can also do the same thing in the forks that you do on the shock. You can go in there and build a spacer that limits how far it comes out. The problem with forks, at least all the most modern ones, is that there is not a lot of adjustment to the preload. There's not a bunch of threads that you can move a collar up and down. You're going to put preload on the forks if you shrink it down in there. So a lot of times you either have to find or buy different length springs and all that kind of stuff. So I try to avoid that if at all possible, just for money savings and the hassle of trying to get the right spring rate, because when you shorten springs, it changes the rate also. It's actually way more complicated than you think it would be. So we try not to do that if at all possible. Now, if someone really needs it short, and we've done everything we can through the suspension, and we still need just that extra ½ inch, we'll actually go to just shaving the seat. So you can just you can see there's plenty of foam on this seat. You can take this cover off, shave this foam down, put the cover back on, and gain some ground that way. And actually, if someone just needs a little bit, like out of a stock bike, that's usually what I recommend first, because that doesn't affect the suspension at all. It doesn't change any geometry, doesn't change the spring rate, nothing. It's just really simple. It's not always easy to do. Like for instance, if we look over here on this YZ, this newer chassis, this is a lot thinner. There's not a lot of meat here to take out. Also, some bike seats just suck. And if you take any foam out of them, it makes them suck even more. Also, you can really screw that up if you're not good at shaving seats, and you can make it really, really uncomfortable to sit on. So I actually recommend talking to people like Seat Concepts or Enduro Engineering or something like that, and just buying a lower seat, because they make the foam the right, it's shorter, but a lot of times it'll be more dense, so you don't feel that seat pan in your butt when you sit down. It's just a better way to go. Of course, it costs more money. A Seat Concept seats is probably $300 now. But that is cheaper than doing custom lowering of suspension. So I think that pretty much covers it. If you guys have any questions, comment below. If you want me to do a specific video about that, let me know. But I think that pretty much covers it. I'm not a huge fan of lowering bikes if I don't have to, but I become a huge fan of lowering it if it gets people out riding more often and it makes them more comfortable on the bike. All right, let's take this thing apart and I'll show you how it's actually supposed to work. I like to take a little bit of lube, get it on these threads, because these things are bound up tight, especially this bike is a little bit dirty, and I just didn't have a chance to wash it. I probably should have just washed it, but this makes it a little bit of lube on there as soon as it gets started, and start spreading that around the threads. Makes this go way easier. This tool, guys, if you're working on shocks, I highly recommend getting one and keeping it away from Zach, because he will steal it at every chance he gets. He's not listening to me. He's acting like he can't hear me. So it helps pushing that steel head down. Dig in here and get a sure clip out. Now we take our ring, take it apart. O-ring goes over. We take this and you'll see, hang on. So this part goes up. You see there's a groove down here for the O-ring that goes down. This is the lip to catch that circlip. Don't worry, I'll bring you guys over here in a second to show you. I'm going to put these together. Put the O-ring on there. There we go. Now, push this down in. And that O-ring is always a little bit tight. There we go. Let's kind of ease it down. Got a tool here, help us push that down. Then we reinstall. Circlip. Need to go just a tiny bit further with the seal. There we go. You hear it clip into place there. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. But now, since we haven't opened anything up, we don't have to bleed anything. I'm just going to put our cap back on. Reinstall our valve core. Then we'll go over to Zach's World and fill it up with nitrogen. I'll be right back. All right, guys, 150 PSI in that sucker. I'm gonna put the spring back on. Like I said, now everything's gonna be down a little bit, but since we have plenty of threads, no big deal. We'll just put the same amount of preload back on it and we'll be good to go. Boom, just like that. pretty easy, really. And like I said, that's going to be about 30 mil. That will be about a 30 millimeter lowering, which is pretty good. This is actually his kid's bike. There's the two bikes are father-son. Both, I mean, the dad's not real tall. The kid's even shorter, but the kid will get bigger. So, yeah, so we should be good to go. We can always take that out if he ends up being a big kid. Take that right out. We'll be full-length shock again, ready to rock. So I like these a lot. They're inexpensive, super easy to do. Yeah, and I'm sure some suspension guru out there is going to be like, no, you cannot do that. It's the only way just to lower shorten the shaft and machine. Shut up. This is a great way to do it, get you through. And honestly, most people don't ride to the ability that they need like perfect suspension anyway. So super happy with this. On to the next job. All right, guys, next on the lift is this 450 EXC. A lot of you guys will recognize that this is an RFS motored KTM. Definitely one of the most venerable, loved / hated KTM platforms. Most people love it, but mechanics and people around them a lot have a different view sometimes. Some people still love them. I mean, even actually most of us that have been around a lot of them have a love / hate, even though there is some hate in there. Because these motors are known for having all kinds of weird problems, but also known for being amazing just tractors. When they're working and they're taken care of, they're done very well. I'm cleaning the carburetor, just a quick clean to see if we can't get it to run well. Got a flat to fix on the front, got a tire to put on the back, full service. But I just wanted to say, because I'm usually here screaming about air filters and how poorly everybody is doing on them, I have to say this is one of the awesome ones. I'm so proud of Nate Disser. This is Nate's bike, who has done a great job. There's the air filter, and someone's going to just go, oh, it looks terrible. Well, they do get dirty. That's the whole point, right? So there's the air filter. I was like, I saw it. I grabbed it. I'm like, oh, that feels sticky. That's nice. So I take it off. There's grease all the way around the rim. And then when we look in here, the intake is super clean. The only thing that's on there is see the little bit of a grease mark from me taking it off. So nice and clean. And guess what? When I kicked the bike, it started. Now, I'm cleaning the carburetor because it didn't run great. It kind of had some hesitations, weirdness going on. So there's some old gas in there. But yeah, the thing started right up. No problems. It feels like the valves are probably in correct adjustment because how quickly it started. So yeah, guys, here's an example of an old bike, kind of hammered old thing, but if well taken care of, even though it's dirty and yeah, I'm going to wash it and all that good stuff, you know, with a little bit of care and attention, they keep working. So, yeah, we got a bunch of stuff we're doing. Like I said, carb, blah, blah, blah. The one thing that I think you guys might want to watch is the lower shock bearing, because this is a Heim joint. It's failed. I have a cool tool that I'll show you how that works. It's been a long time since I've shown you guys. So let me get some other things done here, make sure it runs good, and then we'll get after that. All right, guys, so I got the KTM running really, really well. I just took it for a spin. The quick clean I did of the carburetor worked great. Got a new used rear tire on it with a new tube. Got a new tube in the front tire. That's holding air. That's doing great. Now it is time to address this. That's no good. That's been bad for a while. So yeah, I'll show you how we do that. It's actually not bad. Like, first of all, I love PDS KTMs because it's super easy to deal with this kind of stuff. And I have this awesome tool. Let me show you. All right, guys, now we're using the tool. I usually do it from the other side so I don't have to do it with the chain, but it's just not, that other spacer's not coming out. So I think I can feed this through here. There we go. Hopefully this will drive the spacer out, and then I'll show you how, like, actually what this thing is for. Because, yeah, this is not going exactly as I expected. It is. Now, this tool fits right in there, and it's exactly the right size to fit through that hole. So now we just line this up, and since it's got the long protruding end, the male end that goes in there, it helps line it all up. Now we're just going to beat the living crap out of it with a nice big hammer and drive that out. This is one of the worst I've ever seen. That is disgusting. Oh, doesn't even want to come off the tool. I'm gonna have to beat that out of there, but now we got a brand new one. This thing's gonna actually ride so much better. I'm excited about that. All right, got a new bearing. This is just an all balls Heim joint because, or Heim bearing, Heim, you know what I mean. I would normally use an OEM one because they last a lot longer and these ones aren't that great. But this is just this guy's townie bike. He's just gonna ride around Uray, like in town. He's got real new, nice motorcycles to go do gnarly stuff. So just gonna save him some money, go with the all balls version. Get that started. It's the same end. And run that through. There we go, get that lined up. There we go. Now we have this piece that fits the Heim joint and goes in and it's going to drive it in and it's going to drive it to the right depth. So super cool. It protects that Heim joint with the little cup on this side, drives it into the right depth. Super rad. Now we're going to put our seals in. I use the same part of the tool because this is the right side for the seal. Boom. There we go. Nice and shiny and new. Super happy with that. Now bolts are all back together and this thing is going to be ready to rock and roll. All right guys, so you may recognize this bike. I've done a few videos on it, different things. One of the things I did was a 24-volt starting system, just a super cheap, not really complicated one. And long story short, that didn't work out. He jacked up the charging of them and that was my fault. I should have made it, I should have done the one with the relays and all that. I admit that, but we didn't. So he ruined the battery, no big deal. We got him a new battery. But this bike has an RK Tech head, a high compression RK Tech head. This has the old style KTM starter. So this style, which is honestly not that good. And we've been having problems ever since that head and the thing, and the 24-volt thing worked. Anyway, super long story short, what we ended up doing to make this thing work, which it does now, works great now, is brand new OEM starter. We tried an Arrowhead one. They just do not do the cranking that the OEM ones do. We put the 16 Bendix and ring gear in there that gears it down, makes it easier to spin it. All that's new, fresh, ready to rock and roll. Super happy. The bike starts good, it runs good, really happy. So if you've got one of these bikes, I would say, you know, if it's before 2016, definitely buy the 16 Bendix and ring gear, 100%. Just get that. You can order it from any Rocky Mountain or whatever. We can get you one if you want, if you're local. So do that. Make sure the starter is in good shape and all that, because his old OEM starter had, the bearings were starting to go south on it, so that was not making good contact and not spinning fast enough. So check all your electrical systems and get it ready to go. Now, I don't think it needs the 2 battery system or the 24 volt. That is a great system. It's not that complicated to set it up, but you got to have a couple relays and a little more electrical knowledge than most folks have. And I might do a video on one eventually because I do like that system. It works really good. But with this anti-gravity AG801, that has a ton of cranking amps, and that's the new starter and the right Bendix and ring gear, the thing spins and starts just fine. So lesson learned on our part. I should have just not done the 24 volt thing. Just didn't, wasn't that awesome. So yeah, there you go. I like it, works good. On to the next job. All right, guys, next on the lift is this TTR 125, the steering head bearings. I think they just need to be serviced. We're gonna take them apart and find out, but I have to do a quick mail time / huge thank you to Troy Lee Designs for stepping up when another manufacturer stepped away. If you guys have followed our stuff on social media and here, you'll know that my other gear sponsor, which is actually, it wasn't even really truly a sponsor, they just gave me discounts on their stuff, ghosted me and dropped me for I don't know what reason. They won't tell me, and it's a bummer. I'm not going to badmouth them because I do still like their gear. I just don't appreciate their handling of whatever situation happened. I still don't know what happened, but when a friend of mine saw that, he let the Troy Lee rep know, and actually the Troy Lee rep is a friend of mine also, that had happened, and he's like, wait, what is it? Hold on. And he gets a hold of me, and they stepped up. They got me a full set of their GP Pro Air gloves and an SE5 carbon helmet. That thing is absolutely wicked. Now, if you guys know, I love fly helmets. That might be part of the reason that the other guys dropped me, is because I chose to purchase a fly helmet and not their helmet, because I had to purchase them. Troy Lee has given me this helmet 100% free. It is a $750 helmet, and I am so thankful that I get to try it out. It is crazy light. It has lots of safety stuff built in. I'm going to be going deep into that in some other videos, so make sure you subscribe, hit the little notification bell and all that good stuff. But the main thing is that we're going racing, and I get to wear super rad, awesome gear. Super happy about that. Anyway, thank you, Troy Lee Designs. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Mark Odette, for letting them know that that had happened. I really appreciate it. I'm beyond grateful for that. So now let's take a look at the steering head bearings on the TTR 125. All right, guys, we got the steering stem out. Actually, these bearings aren't bad. I have new ones, but I'm not going to do new ones. I'm just going to grease these up really well because the rollers all look really good. And if we come up here, this one is a ball bearing, but everything's actually pretty greasy on top. So I'm going to grease these things up and be good to go, and then tension them the correct amount. I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to look that up. But usually the way these things work is you go tight, and then you come off a certain amount. I'll Google it and figure it out. Yeah, we'll put it all back together, I think, because it actually the steering didn't feel bad when I felt it up on the lift. Maybe a little bit of a notchiness going on, maybe a tiny bit, but just doesn't look that bad. And the races all look like really good. So we're just gonna grease them up, get them going, and that'll save her a little bit of money. And yeah, we'll get this thing on the road. All right, on this style, since you can't like get a bearing packer on this thing, what I do is get some grease. I like the Motorex stuff, and we're just gonna make a mess, guys, because there's no good way to do this without making a mess, but I like to try to force it down into the bearing because you want it all through there. And I like to kind of do it from the top, like take some grease and just push it down in, you know, as you go around the thing, and that helps get it down in behind the rollers. And for the little roller, I'm just going to put a thin layer on it, and then we'll drop that in. We'll get it on, so this way you can get it on both sides of everything. We'll put that back in, take a look at this race. This race looks good too. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Doesn't have any kind of ridges or anything in it. So, all right, guys, let me show you something here. So this has 2 of these castle nuts. So put that one on, and then this one goes on, and you see it's got this that thing, retainer. It's like a lock washer. So we're gonna leave that off for now. Then we're gonna take this lock ring. We've already got this torqued. I actually couldn't find a torque spec, so what I did is I tightened it down with honestly just using a punch. I have a castle nut, a spanner wrench basically to get on there. Doesn't really matter because we're going by feel at this point since I can't find the torque spec. And I don't need to find the torque spec. It'll be just fine. So I tighten it down until this moves with just a little bit of stiffness. No like grinding or anything like that, but just a tiny bit of stiffness. And it comes with feel, guys. I've been doing this a long time. To quote Jeff Slavens, I've been doing this 75 years, so don't tell me what I'm doing. So I have been doing it a long time, and there's a feel to it. So I feel that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to tighten this down, also with the punch, and we're going to tighten it down until it's pretty tight, and we get the grooves lined up, because then this will drop down in and lock it together. So take care of that here real fast, because after all that is when you put the top triple clamp on. All right, guys, now here is a critical part of doing triple clamps. What we want to do is we've got our top clamp on there. There's Angry Zach. Look at him coming over and stealing my stuff. He didn't even know what he's doing. He is currently shimming the valves on a KX250F, because that's what you do on KXs these days. It seems like lots of shimming of valves. People have asked me about Kawasaki's. They are amazing bikes. They make a ton of horsepower. They run really good. They handle well, all that. But you have got to be absolutely on top of your game with maintenance and air filter maintenance, all that stuff. Otherwise, the valves will go south quickly. They're just not super durable to abuse. They're durable to, high RPM and all that, but man, you just got to be good. Anyway, so what we're doing here, like I said, you got your nut on here to kind of cinch that down just a little bit, just hand tight. You can see it still spins freely of the bottom. Now we're going to slide a fork up in here, and that's going to line it, because if you try to tighten this down and like eyeball it, you will not get it right. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide a fork up in here. We'll tighten just the bottom clamp. Then we'll slide the other fork up here, tighten just the bottom clamp, and then we'll tighten this down to set that preload on there, or set that torque on there, and then we can tighten the tops, and then we'll be good to go. All right, guys, so next on the lift is that lovely BMW GS over there, 650, just an oil change. Quick coffee break, and I have to say, for full transparency, the Rise Mushroom Coffee people did give us some coffee, and it is super, super good. Obviously, I'm a purist. I love coffee, actual real coffee. I'll drink it all day long into the evening. But to be honest, sometimes it gets a little jittery late in the day. It is currently 1:40, and I want a cup of coffee, and so I'm going to have this. It's really, really good, and it's super easy to make. So one thing about the shop, guys, is we don't have an espresso maker. So actually, if you guys want to donate heavily to the channel so that Zach Leander and I can get an espresso machine, we would super appreciate it and make you a cup of coffee anytime you came by. But we'll take care of that anyway by ourselves, all joking aside. But honestly, it's kind of a pain in the butt to make coffee here, like everything, whatever. So this stuff is pretty rad. We just heat up some water. There's some amount that you're supposed to put in here. I don't know. I just do as much as it looks right. That looks good. There we go. That much. And let me read you a little bit about this. Cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, shiitake, turkey tail, and king trumpet. That's awesome. And it's got, let's see, what else does it have in it? It's got some stuff in it. It's like super creamy. It's really, really good. Oh, coconut? There we go. So Zach had to remind me, it's got coconut milk powder. So that makes it really, really creamy and super tasty. And like, I've tried other mushroom coffees because, again, I like to not drink just straight coffee all day long. Because, well, I like to, but it's just not as good for me. This stuff has, with the coconut milk in it, makes it super, super good. Now, there's lots of hipster reasons to drink the mushroom coffee. I'm sure Zach could weigh in on all the super hipster reasons. He could tell you all about the mind clarity and I don't know. There's a lot of things, right? I like it because it makes me alert. It tastes really good, and it's not as harsh as just straight up coffee. Like I said, Zach's over there experiencing some sort of mushroom thing pretty much all the time. But so once we get this water hot, boom. All right, there we go. Nice and hot. And just like that, we have a cup of coffee. I think there actually is, let's see, organic mushrooms. It's got MCT oil powder in it also, and it's got coffee in it. That's where the flavor and caffeine comes from. Anyway, it's super rad. There's a link in the description. If you guys want to try it, I highly recommend it. There's a link with a coupon code in the description of this video. Use that. Save yourself a little bit of money. Help us out. Let them know that I'm doing my job. They're not paying me other than if you buy some mushroom coffee through that link. But I really appreciate it. They reached out to me because of our social media reach and the fact that I love coffee. They actually watched my stuff and said, dude, you like coffee? I'm like, yeah. So I think it's pretty cool. Give it a shot. Try it. Let me know what you think. I think it's pretty rad. Right on, guys. That's the end of the week, the end of the Shlog. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you stick around for the next week's Shlog and all the other videos. We got that thing on the lift, all kinds of things going on there. And we got lots of work to do over there. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Maybe subscribe if you haven't yet. Tell a friend about us. We're trying to grow this thing into the biggest dirt bike channel on YouTube, and we are well on our way. I love you guys so much. I hope you get out and ride your dirt bikes!